Since its birth 25 years ago, the Internet today is largely defined in use of social media and social networking sites. According to the Pew Research Internet Center, 72% of Internet users in the United States are on some type of social networking site. But with increasing rates of social media use comes increasing rates of online harassment, and much of that harassment is directed towards women. In short, the Internet is not a safe space for women today. In this video, we'll take a look at some of the statistics surrounding online harassment, discuss a specific case of a woman who was a victim of this harassment, and talk about the role of social media and us as users in preventing these attacks. Before we delve into some serious instances of harassment of women online, I'm going to take a step back and set the scene for you. In October of 2014, Pew released a report that stated approximately 40% of Internet users experienced some type of harassment online. And of that group, 66 said their most recent harassment occurred on a social networking site. As we'll see in the example later on, social media sites like Twitter gave rise to some of the worst attacks and threats against women. The Pew report went on to say that young women not only experience particularly severe forms of online harassment, but that they experience them at disproportionately high levels. Women ages 18 to 24 experience online harassment in the forms of stalking and sexual harassment nearly twice as much as men. It's clear that women are the primary targets of online harassment, but what is being done about it? As of right now, not much, and this is largely due to social media companies failing to take appropriate action to suppress harassment on their sites. Now that we've established harassment of women online is indeed a reality, and a serious one at that, let's take a close look at an example of online harassment of women, specifically the case of Caroline Criado-Perez. In April of 2013, Criado-Perez, a journalist and feminist activist in England, started a campaign to put women on UK banknotes. Her campaign was ultimately successful, and in July of 2013, the Bank of England announced its decision to put Jane Austen on the £10 note. Unfortunately, Criado-Perez wasn't given much time to enjoy her success. Practically from the moment the bank made its announcement, she started receiving threats of rape, abuse, and murder via Twitter. In an interview with CNN, she reported at one point having received approximately 50 sexually abusive threats per hour. Two attackers, John Nimmo and Isabella Sorley, were arrested for their attacks against Criado-Perez. But sadly, many of the worst offenders will go on scot-free, never paying for their crimes or the damage they inflicted. This is just one example of the many. Female journalists, politicians, activists, gamers, and many more have been victims of this online harassment. In instances like the ones mentioned above, it's nearly impossible for police and officials to track down everyone who participated. So if you can catch the people who are doing the harassing, then how do you stop it? And more importantly, how do you prevent it from happening again? The answer lies in the social media companies themselves. Since social media companies provide the affordances to enable online harassment, they also bear the responsibility of ensuring that serious types of harassment do not occur on their sites. Some women who've experienced harassment have turned to social media companies, and the results have been discouraging to say the least. When Caroline Criado-Perez reported the threats she received to Twitter, she was told she had to fill out a form for each individual threatening tweet she received. In response to this oh-so-helpful suggestion, Criado-Perez tweeted, "When you are drowning in rape threats when they are coming in every second, it's just not practical to report in this way." So she then turned to Mark Lucky, Twitter's manager of journalism and news, for help. And as any upstanding gentleman in his position would do, Lucky refused to respond to Criado-Perez and eventually turned his Twitter account private. Fortunately, Criado-Perez didn't give up and started a petition, which ultimately received 140,000 signatures and caused Twitter to put a report abuse button on all its platforms within a month. While this victory is significant, it is not enough. The fact that it took a serious harassment case and 140,000 people petitioning for Twitter to emerge from its cone of silence is unacceptable. Twitter and all social media sites in general need to become more involved in the type of culture that is being fostered on their site, and they need to ensure that that culture is not threatening towards women. We as users can also play a significant role in the prevention of harassment of women online. As users and consumers of social media, it is up to us to A, not be a part of the problem, and B, to be a part of the solution. So what can we do? It's pretty simple, actually. Go on social media. Sites like Twitter are what enable attacks to grow and circulate so rapidly, but we can use these same affordances to spread the message against these types of harassment. For example, Criado-Perez, along with other Twitter users, started using the hashtag #ShoutingBack to respond to the violence she experienced. This hashtag is now used to spread awareness about issues of harassment and sexism online. Whether it's using a hashtag, retweeting, or sharing a link, anything you do on social media that advocates against the harassment of women online spreads the message that this is a serious problem that needs to be fixed. The more we get the word out, the better chance we have of being heard. Because of our involvement in social media, it can be difficult to detangle what goes on in our online lives from our offline lives, and this is especially true with the harassment of women. Social media companies need to work to prevent the harassment of women online and become more involved in protecting its users. And in the same manner, us as users can aid in the solution by actively promoting and fighting against this issue. The web is becoming increasingly unwelcome to women, and that needs to change.